Hey guys, STLYoungblood with you, along with my co-host DrankTHEKoolaid. Say hello, Koolaid.
Hello.
And we're here for another episode of Duality. This time we're featuring Drathamus. So say hello, Drath.
How's it going?
All right, pretty good. All right, so today what we're going to be talking about is actually breaking down some of the roadmap items that we've got coming up. Some of them were chosen just because they're interesting and going to have substantial changes to gameplay, but some of them are also just kind of interesting and fun to talk about and what kind of consequences they actually have towards the game overall. So before we jump into what's officially on the roadmap, Drathamus and Koolaid have been following a little bit of what Higby's been tweeting about through the interwebs and Twitter. So why don't you kind of get us started on what's actually going on and what they're planning on doing?
Well, first and foremost, since I believe all of us are new conglomerate players, the Terran Republic carbines are practically boring. 143 damage model across all of them, and Higby himself has been tweeting a little bit on what they want to be doing with the new combat update that's going to be coming in, I believe, later in April. And he's been tweeting out some stuff like the LC2 Lynx, which is kind of exactly like the LC3 Jaguar. That's actually going to be reduced to 125 damage model with an 898 rounds per minute fire rate. And also, I believe the T5 AMC, which is still a 143 damage weapon considered a long-range carbine, is possibly going to be shifted to a 167 damage model.
All right, so you just hit us with a bunch of numbers. Why don't you kind of break it down with what sort of impact you think that's actually going to have on gameplay? And Koolaid, feel free to jump in as well, and if you think these are actually good changes.
Like Drathamus said, the TR carbines were pretty boring. I haven't used a lot of them. The Jaguar is the one that I have used mainly. And the reason I hadn't bought the Lynx is because, it's pretty much the same as the Jaguar. And I like these changes. I think the Lynx will have a nice spot. A lot of people are saying it's basically just a submachine gun now. I'm sure they'll change some other characteristics of the weapon as well. But, the main difference between the Lynx, what it's going to be with that 125 damage model and a submachine gun, it's still going to have the extended maximum damage range that carbines have over, submachine guns.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about that, Drath? Do you feel like that's a warranted change? And I'm kind of deferring to you guys in this topic because I really haven't played with the carbines much on the outside of the NC faction.
Yeah, the more diversity I feel, the better. I like the new conglomerate the most since we have the widest damage range to choose from for each specific fight that we want to choose. But the Terran Republic kind of get shafted in that regard. Since with these new changes, we're going to have a lot more variation. We'll be able to choose far more if we want to use a long-range carbine or a short-range carbine or a medium all-arounder.
Well, I could certainly agree with you there. I mean, one of my favorite things about just games in general is the diversity and, being able to switch things up just from a, personal engagement standpoint. I want to be able to mix things up. I kind of get bored using the same weapon constantly. And for our TR brothers out there, it's probably good for them to be able to find those weapons just to, one, either mix it up, or two, to kind of fit into those niche roles a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's, like Drathamus said, that's the reason I like the NC weapons so much, especially not just carbines, but, all together, LMGs, we have a bigger variety. I think just pretty much across the board, we have more options to play with. Whereas TR is just kind of limited to those high rate of fire, 143 damage model weapons.
All right. And are we seeing any changes for VS and NC coming along the same lines?
I believe they said they are going to add another carbine for VS and TR, or VS and NC. I don't think there's been too many details on what it's actually going to be. If I had to guess for NC, I would think maybe another higher rate of fire type carbine, but I don't really know.
Yeah, if I could place a finger on it, if they're going to be giving the Terran Republic a 125 damage model carbine, they might just be doing the same for VS and NC.
I mean, personally, I'd love to have a Jaguar or Lynx on my NC character. It's half the reason I have so much fun playing TR is because I love that gun so much. But you know, I'd still overall I'd choose that bigger variety that we have.
All right, sounds good. So there's something to look forward to. It'd be interesting to see also from just a gameplay perspective and how that changes, you know, being on opposing factions outside of just the TR who actually get the new stuff. So let's go ahead and move on from there. Again, we've kind of picked some of these out from the, you know, from the roadmaps and want to talk about just because they feel more relevant. I want to just start out with two that are more just noteworthy because I think they're personally exciting to me. The first one is slated for March. We're almost at the end of March, so I'm not real sure what the update is on this one, but the 64-bit client. Now, for those of you that don't know, basically, it's going to utilize more RAM, meaning less crashing for those of us that are using ultra textures. I don't know about you guys, but I seem to get a crash right about the 2-hour mark every time that I'm playing.
Mine's about every 15 minutes.
And yeah. I guess it varies a little bit. I've had the 15-minute crash. Inevitably, it's always right after I pull a freaking vehicle.
Yeah, I'm not too bad, but pretty much guaranteed at least one crash throughout tonight when I'm playing. That's for sure.
Yep. And it's always fun when you're leading a platoon or a squad, and all of a sudden you have to get in and have people shuffle around and give you your lead back. And big pain in the ass. So I'm looking very much forward to that. So not much to talk about, just noteworthy, and it makes me happy so you guys get to hear about it.
Yeah, but doesn't I'd be willing to say that I think a lot of people that aren't playing on Ultra crash just as often as well. So I don't know if that's gonna completely fix that or not.
I'm doubtful that it's gonna fix crashing altogether, but I'm optimistic it's gonna make things better. Because I know when I drop down and play on high, I don't crash anywhere as frequently as I do when I'm on Ultra, but I am spoiled by the good graphics and want to keep playing on Ultra, so it's something I just kind of deal with. But I agree. I don't think it's going to be the magic pill that fixes everything either.
I'm hoping NVIDIA can actually step up and produce some drivers that'll work.
Sweet Jesus, these last ones have been terrible, haven't they?
Yeah. If anybody is running an NVIDIA card, just stick with 332.21 for now until Higby states otherwise.
Yeah, I think I'm going to need to revert. It has not been good. All right, and then the other one that's just kind of noteworthy, there's not a lot to talk about here, is in April they're working on what's called the outfit base capture. And basically what they have listed here is if your outfit is the top contributor to a base capture, we'll identify the facility outpost as belonging to your outfit. Now they say that they still have a lot of work on what that, you know, what they're going to need to iron it out. They're not really sure what the top contributor really means. So I don't know if it's going to be, you know, the outfit that takes down the most generators, so the outfit with the largest presence there, whatever it may be. However, I thought it was kind of interesting to see that actually put in there because, you know, one of the things we talked about 2 videos ago in the in player engagement was actually having some accomplishments that were, you know, in game. And seeing your outfit actually listed as owning that, you know, facility based on being the top contributor, I think is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, it sounds just kind of like bragging rights. It's pretty much the gist of it, I think.
And back in the early days of Alpha, I believe on the SOE Live keynote back in 2011 or whenever, Higby actually stated that they wanted to have in-game, I guess, repercussions based on your outfit play and having bases belong to you. So I think once we actually have the ability to have our own emblems to put on our shoulders, our vehicles and stuff to display our outfit, I think that recognition when you see the big NC logo and the sweet Planet Express crew Liberator on the side, everybody will know Youngblood took that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is, you know, it is about recognition, but I think it, you know, for some of the more casual players that are actually in an outfit, it might kind of get them engaged into, you know, working to achieve that result. I think in general, very minor change on gameplay, but I think it's also just kind of a fun mechanic that we can see kind of weaved into it.
Yeah, it might help with outfit recruitment a little bit too, if people are seeing your logo plastered everywhere.
Yep, agreed. I'm sure some of the people that don't like fighting big outfits are thinking, oh great, the Zergs are going to have their brand labeled all across the continent. But whatever. All right, so here's a big one, and I think this is going to be an area where we'll probably have a little bit more discussion, is tentatively scheduled for June. We're looking at the resource revamp. So what they've actually got listed in here, and I'm just going to kind of run through this, is a removal of acquisition timers, A removal of XP generating resources, so basically there's no tie between your experience and your resources. A recalibration of resource income and costs of all resource consuming activities, so think vehicles, throwing grenades, pulling mech suits, etc. The base income rate is assumed to be 60 resources per minute. So every minute you get 60 resource points, depending on where you're at. And we'll kind of talk about that in just a sec. Vehicle maintenance costs, which reduce income and maximum reserves while vehicles are active. Now, the way this actually works is at facilities, it's a little bit different. So if you're a player in a friendly region, then the region that you're in, that facility, is supplying your resources. The next note here is if a player is not in a friendly region, then the supplying facility is the nearest adjacent friendly territory. If there isn't an adjacent friendly territory, the income is 0. And then the amount of resources supplied to a player is directly related to the facility power level. So full power grants 60 personnel resources every minute. And lastly, warp gates are always full power and give the maximum income to players being supplied by one. So with this, I know that's kind of a lot of information to take in. I think one of the biggest things that we've seen about metagame and just the gameplay overall is there's no consequence really to being cut off. The lattice has kind of changed that a little bit, but now if you're not linked to an adjacent facility, it sounds like it's going to be tough to get those resources actually available to you. So it sounds like, you know, all of a sudden being cut off actually has a little bit more of a consequence. And then it also sounds like it's encouraging, you know, defensive play instead of just always being on the offense and seeing just kind of the rotation of empires.
It's an interesting concept, no doubt, but the main benefit that I see of this are people who specialize in just one different thing. Like one person who just plays with tanks, or just plays air, or just pulls maxes all day. The new pooled resource would help a lot, since they wouldn't have to worry about the 750 infantry vehicle or air resources at one given time. They can always be earning that just pool whenever they need it.
Yeah, and I could kind of see that being a problem, because to me, right now, it's already way too easy to just pull tanks whenever you want. If all you want to do is ride around a tank, you know, it's already plenty easy to do that. And if it's all pooled into one, I think it's just going to be easier. What I do think is that this is going to make defending bases a lot more important. It's going to make, you know, tech plants, things like that, a lot more important. And like Youngblood said, you know, you're going to want to defend and not get cut off. And overall, I just think it's going to put way more importance on those type bases, whereas now it's kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, and I think kind of going back to your first point about it already being easy to pull vehicles, the note that they have here that's going to really make or break it is they say vehicle maintenance cost, which is going to reduce income and maximum reserves while vehicles are active. So I'm wondering what happens here if you're going to have enough juice to be able to pull another one if your reserves are depleting really quickly. I think that depending on how much this actually is, you know, being played into it or taken into effect, it might help to reduce vehicle spam a little bit, depending on what those maintenance costs actually are. You know, at the same time, though, I think if you keep a tank alive for a really long time, I think you should have the ability to pull another one right away. You know, I don't think, you know, it's removal of acquisition timers in this kind of play together, but I don't necessarily think if you have a great run, you should necessarily be penalized by not being able to pull another one. So I think maybe there's some constraints, like you wouldn't be able to get ones back to back to back, but maybe 2 in a row is fine. I don't know. We're already taking XP out of the equation, and I like having skills rewarding you somehow. I'm just wondering what this vehicle maintenance cost actually is and how extreme they're going to take that.
Yeah, I mean, we can't really speculate too much until we have, you know, concrete numbers of what that maintenance is going to cost. And I agree that if you're in a tank and you're on a big run, and I mean you get killed after 30 minutes, I have no problem with you pull another tank. It's people that you know, will pull a tank, they'll die right away, pull another tank, they'll go on a little kill streak, and by that time they can pull another tank. And you know, right now it's just too easy, and hopefully this will change that up a little bit. But like I said, we don't really know for sure until we have some concrete numbers.
The main fact that I really like about it is, like you said, if you pull a tank, die 3 minutes later, pull another tank. What if you pull a tank, get disconnected. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true as well.
and that's been one of my biggest gripes about the crashing is, like I said, it always seems to happen right after I pull a vehicle. So, yeah, I agree, and I think for the most part, I think this is a good solution, and I think going back to kind of what we talked about last time with roles, and balance and all that kind of stuff. If tanks all of a sudden are harder to pull. There's going to be less of them on the battlefield, and then you're going to have you should at least have a more focus on keeping your faction's tanks alive. So whether that means you're pulling a repair Sunday, or you've got engineers that are kind of running on to pulling like infantry around you to kind of keep you alive and supporting you, I think it does kind of help to specialize those roles and place some more importance on actually keeping your armor up when we know it's going to be harder to keep it, a constant flow coming.
Yeah, I mean, if that's how it works, I mean, I kind of look at tanks the same way I look at maxes, where they're just too easy to get right now, and they have huge impacts on the battlefield, and I would like to see it where they're just as strong, or maybe even stronger, but they're just more, just much harder to actually get, or not as, not harder to get as frequently is English.
That's
a good effort. I liked it.
Yeah, I tried.
See, I wouldn't mind that, since right now we have big armor columns where the main focus is just let's get as many tanks as we can. If we have a limit on the resource income, depending on how far that base is captured, if you're cut off or anything, then tanks and maxes, instead of them being a force to be reckoned with, they're actually be what they're intended to be and be a force multiplier.
Exactly, and if it works out like that, then it's definitely going to be a good change. And like I said, we just don't know exactly for sure. It's all kind of speculation right now.
Yep. Now, and I think the removal of the acquisition timers is a very good thing. In my mind, I sit here and say, well, you've already got resources. You don't necessarily need to duplicate another restriction on the acquisition timer. So it kind of simplifies things a little bit. How do you guys feel about taking earning experience away from generating resources?
I'm honestly all for it. If I was a newer player, which I'm sure this is what it's geared to, if I'm in a fully powered base, I'm chilling at an amp station that we just secured for ourselves, I'd be expecting to get 60 personal resources every minute. If I'm in some other person's base and I'm sitting there farming their spawn point, for example, and I'm getting kills every 25 XP for one resource, then I'd be like, why am I getting 100 resources right now? There's no clear indication in game right now that says you get this amount for doing this, and I think that's what they're trying to simplify.
Yeah, I kind of agree as well. Oftentimes when I talk about maxes and how easy they are to pull and stuff like that, I often forget that I'm killing a lot more people than some newer players might be, and I'm racking up them resources a lot faster, where somebody who just started isn't going to be doing that. And I often forget that when I talk about how easy it is to pull maxes one right after another, but I think this will just even out the playing field a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'm generally not a fan of making these sort of changes based on skill level. And I mean, I even mean that for things that I'm not very good at doing. So I'm not just trying to say yeah, I'm good at certain things and I want to be rewarded for it. But I think the one thing that I tend to forget when talking about this is that part of being a skilled player is you're typically going to live longer. So the fact that you're living longer means you're going to be still racking up resources through the normal ways, meaning that you're going to be able to pull one sooner afterwards, after your death, than somebody who pulled one and died almost right away. So I guess there's still that piece of it that kind of helps out.
It all comes back to casual gaming.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to stern the cannon fodder.
Yeah, there's always going to be one. All right. I'm trying to think of which one of these I want to jump over to next. I guess let's do this one because it actually kind of relates to being cut off, and that's May. In May, we're looking at Hossin and continent locking coming in. So, I think we all know well about Hossin, the swamp continent, and I think it's great. And if you haven't seen it on the test server, you should go check it out because it looks like it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. That being said, well, the piece that's actually going to play into this a little bit more is the continent locking aspect. So continent locking, or continental lattice, is on the horizon, as they say. And basically, the goal is going to be to increase the metagame overall. And how they're going to do that is each of the current continents, Endar, Esamir, and Amarish, are going to be a home continent for one empire. Now, that empire's home continent, you're going to have one home warp gate, meaning that you can't actually capture that. So if the NC have Esamir and they're totally pushed back to their warp gate, you wouldn't be able to capture that. You could capture everything else, but not that home warp gate. All the other warp gates can now change hands like a regular territory. They don't really know how to work that out just yet. By taking control of a warp gate, your empire can now advance along any continental lattice connected to it. Hossin is given 3 warp gates, one connected to Endar, Esamir, and Amarish. There is no home warp gate on Hossin, and the battle islands fall between the continents on all of those links, not leading to Hossin. So just to kind of clarify how this actually looks, and I'll throw an image up on this video just to kind of help clarify, but Esamir is connected to Hossin, Endar is connected to Hossin, Amarish is connected to Hossin. Now, in order to go from Endar to Amarish, there's a battle island between them. Same thing between all the other main continents. So there's an intercontinental lattice that has actually played out now. And again, hopefully the image I'll put up on the screen is going to kind of help explain that a little bit. So I'm personally really excited about this. One, just because I really want to get my hands on Hossin and see how the gameplay actually plays out once we get like big forces on there. But two, I think the aspect of continental locking and having a home continent is kind of an interesting concept, and I'm excited to see how it plays out on a bigger scale, especially since I didn't play Planetside 1.
I think anything like right now, basically, when you're not doing an alert, there's really no main goal. And if you go back to when the game first came out, you had every big outfit was trying to not lock the continent, but take over the continents. And I don't ever see that really happening anymore. So if this, kind of goes back to that and gives a bigger goal, then I'm all for it.
Like Koolaid said, there's not much of a metagame right now. And with the continental locking, I think it would be pretty awesome to hop on your new conglomerate guy and just stroll around Esamir while your other teammates are holding off the other 2 battle islands and just kind of chilling out. Or when you're taking the fight to the Terran Republic, and in order to do so, you have to leave your continent, you warp to a battle island where there's a massive fight going on in a really much smaller area than the continents we know, wiping the enemy out, and then fighting them on their home turf. I think that add much more scale to the game than we're seeing now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like that aspect of, they're invading our land almost. Now, my question comes in when talking about the battle islands, and right now they fall between the continents on the links. So my assumption here is, based on the image that Sony's posted up, you need to own the battle island to jump between continents. Now, the battle islands are small, and they were made to serve this role, but frankly, they were also made as part of the MLG drive. So to me, it seems like there's going to be a limited number of players that can go on to the battle islands. So if the battle islands are serving as a link between the original continents, and there's a smaller player size allowed, I'm wondering if really skilled outfits can just like permanently hold those battle islands. There's obviously other links and ways to get to it, but I could see something like that being a little problematic.
But then that would also be really good. It's kind of a double-edged sword if you think about it, since you would have 2 big massive outfits going head to head on a battle island. Yeah, big heads, woo! Yeah. And then you just have the average Joe walk in and he's getting his face rolled across the floor. But then if the battle islands are a lot smaller, there's always that open continental lattice between your home and Hossin. So even if the battle islands are full, you could go to Hossin, push them back, and then push to the other continent.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be too much of a problem as long as there's other ways to get to the other continents. As long as you don't have to go through the battle islands, I don't see it being too big of an issue. I think it'll actually be cool for the bigger outfits that want to do stuff like that.
Yeah, no, and I was really playing more devil's advocate there because I totally agree. And one of my biggest gripes about the game to date has been when they introduced lattice without having this intercontinental lattice. I felt like it took a lot away from the creative nature of running a squad or a platoon and being able to kind of think outside the box and push to wherever you really wanted to kind of surround a base. The lattice kind of watered things down for me a bit, but having the ability now to look big picture and to work across continents and battle islands, I think is something that's a really exciting prospect to me.
I wish they would take or add in no lattice alerts. I think one of my favorite periods of Planetside 2 is when they first put in alerts and the continents without lattice. You know, you could basically just capture any zone in the entire continent, and it made for really fun strategies and just kind of really fun fights overall. I think kind of a scramble at the last 10 minutes to see who could get the most.
It was all really hectic, and people seeing who could grab the biggest plot of land in the shortest amount of time.
Yeah, and it made you think like, let's send this squad here, this squad there, this squad here. For now, it's just kind of we need to hold this one zone.
Right. Now, let's try and help Sony out a little bit here. Let's put our minds together because they said that they don't really know how the details are going to work out as far as warp gates, non-home warp gates changing hands. So what do you guys think would be a fair way to capture a warp gate where it's not necessarily, I mean, obviously capturing warp gate in my mind should be slightly defender friendly, but I don't think it should necessarily be like a stronghold and impossible. So what do you guys think would be some mechanics that could be put in to maybe make capturing warp gates feasible?
Since the warp gates are essentially designed as a triangle, I think it would be neat to have like a Battlefield Rush kind of thing where you have to arm those massive pylons that are controlling the warp gate, blow up the shields, and then get in.
Yeah, I haven't thought about this too much, but something like that would be cool, kind of like the MCOMs and Rush. I would make them extremely hard to defend, like Youngblood kind of mentioned. But I mean, I honestly haven't really thought about this too much.
And, you know, something that would probably need a lot of thought, and I really like the idea of like a crazy mad rush to arm like an MCOM style device. That I think that sounds awesome, actually. I'm wondering if something else, like, because right now a warp gate shield's impenetrable to any enemy. I wonder if we got to a point where if you capture all the bases that surround a warp gate, you could then penetrate the warp gate with like a gate diffuser. And then from there, you could actually, you know, go about trying to actually set off those, you know, charges or whatever that can actually bring down the shields. And then at the end, after all the enemies are actually cleared out or whatever it may be, then all of a sudden you take ownership of that gate. I'm wondering if there needs to be like a set time limit though. Like you need to own all 3 of the points that surround a warp gate for, you know, 25 minutes or 20 minutes, you know, something that's significant where, you know, it kind of gives the other opposing faction a chance to organize a push out if they have to.
Yeah, playing off that idea, I mean, they could just add new, excuse me, they could add, you know, a couple new outlier warp gate outliers that have, you know, capture points or whatever that you would have to hold for a certain amount of time at the, you know, consecutively or at the same time. I mean, they could just put in whole new bases designed directly for that, and then once those are down, the warp gate shield would go down, and then you could move in and maybe, you know, arm one more thing or something like that.
So instead of like it would be more like the biolab outlying facilities, whereas you capture one, you gain a entrance way to teleport into the biolab. You just get those 3 and just get the shields down.
Kind of, yeah, except, you know, instead of gaining just a direct entrance, the shields would come down basically, and at that point it'd probably be a little easier to take over the warp gate. The hardest part would probably be, you know, getting that shield down in the first place.
Well, and I think that could kind of even, you know, there's so much unused space in warp gates right now, and, you know, we could kind of utilize some of those buildings that are actually already in there, and then maybe you've got shield generators that are inside of there, and you know, vehicles can't make it through the warp gate shield, but infantry then can, or something to that effect, I think.
And honestly, I mean, the warp gate wouldn't have to be like those outliers that I mentioned. Wouldn't have to be that incredibly defendable, because you're going to be right next to their warp gate, so
yeah, you've got proximity on your side.
They're going to get that full resupply charge that we talked about earlier. So just by nature, it's going to be very defendable anyway.
Yeah.
We'll also have to add in a lot more assets on the ground. Otherwise, infantry would just get destroyed in warp gates.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm guessing they would do like a complete kind of redesign of the warp gate anyway. You know, I'm not sure, but
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of like the covered catwalks that we now see on like Amarish, like those types of things. So the other thing that I think is interesting is we all have a home continent when this actually happens. So Endar, Esamir, and Amarish. Well, you know, if we think about it, you know, there's Vanu archives on Endar. So let's say maybe the Vanu gets Endar as their home continent. Endar is everybody's favorite place to play, and I don't mean everybody, but that's where we see all the fights when there's not an alert going on. So with that in mind, and let's say the Vanu does get Endar, do we then see maybe a population shift towards what other faction ends up getting the quote-unquote favorite continent?
I don't think that would make people really necessarily change factions, or
I don't know. I mean, we saw population drops and increases based on who had the home warp or the north warp gate on Endar, though.
I don't even. I know it's like an advantage, but I don't get why somebody would play a different faction just because of where the warp gate is. It just sounds silly to me.
Well, and it may not so much be more people are playing that faction, but the faction percentage increases based on other people not playing as frequently. I agree. I don't think there's that big of a difference, but what we've seen in the past has indicated that that may be something they need to be prepared for going forward.
It's also a heavy factor in consideration with the World Domination Series. So once that actually gets ironed out and all of the crazy Zerg movements with that gets fixed, maybe the northern warp gate on Endar will also not be a factor when it comes to cross-continental lattices.
Yep.
Yeah, you would think so.
We can hope. All right. It's coming up in May. We've got directives. Now, basically what directives are is it's Planetside's version of achievements. Basically, they're saying what's making this different is they want to utilize it to direct new players while still creating a system that is relevant to veteran players. So there's tiered directives, and you may see, you know, low tier, low to mid tier, high tier, etc. With there being different goals that you need to actually achieve. And they are saying that the first ones may be very generic, the last ones may be very, very specific. So some of the examples of low tier directives they gave, kill 5 enemies, accept a revive, use instant action, spend 20 certs, etc., etc. Higher tier directives, they say, maybe like earn 20 Erexium medals, earn 1,000 ribbons, kill 5 enemies with 1 C4. Some of those things that we kind of see as, like achievements and challenges in other games kind of being implemented here. So yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting addition. Do you guys feel strongly about these at all?
Well, the one that you said, I don't know if you made it up or it was listed, the kill 5 guys with 1 C4. Did you make that up?
No, that's listed as a higher tier directive.
Well, something like that I can see as being a problem. That comes out, you're going to have a bunch of light assaults flying around trying to kill 5 people with 1 C4. I mean, other than that, I like the idea. I don't see anything wrong with it. I like achievements in every game. I don't necessarily strive to get them, but I mean, it's nice when they pop out. But as long as, like I said, you don't have ones that are necessarily like that, which is going to cause people to completely alter how they play and, excuse me, take away from the actual game, I'm perfectly fine with it.
I'd agree. I was never a big fan of achievements that are like, sit in a corner, not do anything for a full game, and then knife some dude, or something like that. But with these, I'm really hoping that as you get into the higher tiers, there's rewards. I don't care much for numbers. If somebody inspects my account and they see I have a bajillion achievement points, but I didn't get anything from doing that, It's just kind of bleh. I'm playing a shooter. It's not really an MMO or an RPG of any sorts. The one that says spend 20 certification points, I think that would be really, really funny if that gave like a 1 cert point bonus or like 200 XP. I just think it'd be cooler if there was more incentives. It states that we could get like a camo or a different looking weapon, probably like a platinum weapon. That would give me something to strive for, not just generic points.
Definitely. That actually, you know, we talked a little bit about that in player progression. If the you know, the directives were geared towards certain classes, you could get like you know, show off that you play that class a lot or you use that weapon a lot. That type of stuff I would really like as well, as opposed to just, you know, like you said, having numbers, because nobody really cares about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think one of the things that, yeah, I mean, going back to player progression, just in general with the, you know, directives, I think it's good for people's engagement. You know, for people that, you know, don't have the metagame right now and they're not playing with outfits, I could see them getting bored with the game. You know, it could be frustrating if you don't have that drive to that organization. Having just these really simple to probably implement type of achievements actually in the game, I think keeps people interested, which is obviously good for the community. I think, you know, on a bigger scale, I mean, I think it's great for especially players that are, you know, higher tiered and, you know, getting those things that we talked about in the player progression video as far as being able to show people through some sort of cosmetic, you know, that you are dedicated to a certain role.
Yeah, it also, you know, possibly make you go out and try some different weapons that you might not normally try and stuff like that, which I'm fine with. I think they should, you know, actually do, if they do it, have different tiers. Say like a weapon, say one of them is get 10 kills, one of them is get 1,000 kills. I think they should have really high tiers with really cool rewards too. Like, for example, you get 10,000 kills with your favorite weapon, you get some crazy ass camo that nobody else can use, or nobody else that doesn't use that weapon to the extreme like you do, you know, will ever have access to it.
Luma fiber.
for the weapon or for the camo?
Either or.
Both.
Nice.
As much
Nice.
Luma fiber as you can possibly fit on your body and extremities.
You actually just a kind of a glowing blob that looks like some sort of entity.
Yep, bullet magnet. But like Koolaid was saying, one thing I wouldn't want to see is them using the directives as a point of sales. Like you said, get 1,000 kills with a weapon is, I would hope that would be earn 1,000 kills with a weapon you already have. If not, it would say earn 1,000 kills with this weapon. Click to unlock now.
Yeah,
Well,
and that's
yeah,
kind of what
I
I was
mean,
thinking about too when
I
Koolaid
think
was
they
talking.
pretty much, you'd have to have the same for every weapon. I'm sure that with the new advertising we saw today, it would they probably would have that unlock now and buy premium membership unless you want to die.
So yeah, I mean, I think in general it's a good thing, but there's probably some kinks they need to work out. And you're right. I mean, I would hate to see it turn into like a sales tactic. You know, whether that comes with it, you're only seeing directives for equipment that you already have, or maybe it's instead of just being there, you can see that there's other ones available to you, but you're still getting plenty. Or maybe it's even you know, a little bit more generic, like get you know, 1,000 kills with the carbine. You know, instead of specifically
yeah,
get
like
1,000
that.
kills with GD7F. I don't know, something.
We take a little break. I gotta pee.
Okay.
Nope.
All right, so now that Koolaid's back from the little girl's room, let's talk about our last subject. So coming in July, we've got the squad and platoon enhancements. So for those of you that are not currently in a squad, pay attention because this might actually give you some information to maybe make you want to join up with an outfit, or at least to play, you know, organized with a group when you're playing solo. For those of you that are currently in organizations, pay attention because there's some good stuff coming for you. So let's start right at the top, squad mentorship bonus. Now, basically, what they're doing is for players, and it's to be determined, but each player under battle rank 20 is going to give their squad a flat XP bonus. Now, unlike the squad XP bonuses that we see now, like so if you activate a bonus and it gives everybody in your squad boost as well, this bonus is only going to be active when you're fighting in the same region as the new player. And basically the goal here is to encourage squads to work together and kind of handhold their newbies, that was their terminology, on how to get to the fight and stick with the squad. Now, to take that even a little bit further, you can actually create a mentor squad. Basically, if you create a squad and label it as mentor, and it's going to prioritize players that are auto-joining into your squad that are under battle rank 10. Now, I think that's
sounds
kind
like a terrible squad.
It does. Now, here's something that might be interesting is, let's say you've got 6 new players and 6 tenured players. That might actually turn that squad into an XP cash cow, especially for the good players in that squad. So, I don't know. I mean, I think it's something that's interesting, but yeah, I think you're right. It sounds like a pretty terrible squad. And my question here is, though, I think it's obviously beneficial to like small groups to have these people jump in, because if nothing else, if they're fighting alongside the newbies, they're getting more XP. It's also more targets for the enemy to shoot at that's not the good players. I'm wondering how many good players are actually going to take the time to help the new players out and see how much development actually is taking place, which you would assume is really the goal of a mentor squad.
Did you say they have to be under rank 10, or
the numbers are all in general. Right now it says that it's going to prioritize players under battle rank 10, but the squad membership bonus, mentorship bonus before was under battle rank 20. So it's either different for what we're talking about, or they just haven't come to terms with what it's going to be yet.
Well, I mean, I can see this again being as a really good recruitment tool. You know, you open up a public squad as a big outfit, and you're gonna get a lot more people joining if they have this there. So I don't see any problems with it. I think overall it's gonna be a good thing. I don't think a lot of the bigger, you know, top players that could care less about certs, you know, are really gonna give a damn about mentoring newer players. But you also have a lot of players that you know will take time or, you know, try to help out newer players. So overall, I do think it's probably a good thing.
There's a couple of things that they'd have to do beforehand, though. We have the introduction that players have when they make a new character on a new account that have to go through the tutorial, but within that tutorial, there's nothing shown that you can push a button to talk to people. You can type, but it's not really made clear that there's VoIP until you hear somebody screaming or playing music or something. So if we do have these squad mentoring things, I think it'd be really cool to have a new player come into the squad. They're hanging out with some battle rank 80 or 100 guy that's trying to show them the ropes, even though they don't need certs or XP. They're just trying to help build the community, these outstanding people, and this super awesome community that we have that could help some newer players. Since I know when I first started playing Planetside 2 back in the beta, it was awful. I had no idea what I was doing. I would get sniped from a Youngblood across the map, just camping, and I would just be like, I hate this game. Yeah. So
yeah,
if we have somebody there that can talk to you, that can show you everything, just give you a basis of the game that beyond the tutorial will teach you, I think that would be awesome for more newbies and to help grow the community as a whole.
Well, and I think you're absolutely spot on with saying that they need to be taught that they can use VoIP in game, because a more tenured player is kind of focused on what their objective is. They're not necessarily looking at a player that's rolling with them and saying this person doesn't have any idea what they're doing. But having it almost encouraged for the new players to actually communicate with tenured ones, asking questions. You may be like, what weapon should I use? What class should I be in this situation? I think that's the type of communication. And you know, in our community, for the most part, I mean, we all know there's some douches out there that don't necessarily fall into this category, but for the most part, I think Planetside's got a pretty good community that really is willing to help.
I'm one of those douches.
You really are.
Come on,
no, no, yeah, I agree, and I think if like Drathamus said, you need a tutorial. They do need a tutorial to. Even if they weren't implementing this, they should have a tutorial to, you know, tell you what different buttons talk and what different channels and all that. And you know, if people were to start these sort of mentor squads, they would obviously be willing to answer those type of questions. Where if you jump in a squad right now and just start asking questions, you know, you're probably going to get ignored half the time.
Yep, agreed.
Or probably given the old boot.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, that too.
The next one, I love the title here, Auto Squad Smartification. So basically what they're saying is there's going to be some prioritization enhancements when it comes to what squads you're auto-joining. So, you know, we already talked about if you're under BR10 or whatever that level is, and there's a mentor squad open, you're likely going to be put into that. They also say that it's going to be looking for someone on your friends list. So if I'm online and, you know, Koolaid, you're in a squad and I hit auto join, I would probably be put in your squad if there's a room in your, you know, room available for you.
You.
What?
You.
Ah, what a dick. You see, he is king of the douches.
I know, really, man. Come on.
I'm only a douche to Youngblood.
Yeah, that's true. Then there's the same thing. You know, if there's an outfit mate in a squad, you're likely to be paired up with them, which is really convenient. You know, especially if you don't have to actually go in and, you know, look for your, you know, outfit's squad being open. You could just hit it and hopefully be pulled into the right squad. And then the last one, if I guess none of those apply, is on your current continent. So luckily, you know, I think we've all hit insert and been placed on a Endar squad while you're actually fighting on Esamir and going, well, this is of no use to me whatsoever. So, I mean, I think those are good changes. I think they probably should have been in there for the, you know, from the beginning, outside of just the mentor squad. But I think it just kind of helps to keep things a little bit cleaner.
Definitely. A lot of the stuff we're talking about, I think, should have been implemented in the game a long time ago. And I think a lot of the newbie stuff, I think Rel had a lot to do with getting this stuff implemented. You know, like the class quiz we took, I think Rel had a big percentage in getting that taken care of.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one of the things that I keep thinking of about with all this is, you know, at a game that's almost, what are we, like a year and a half into its life cycle now, I'm hoping that this stuff isn't all coming in too late. I would hate to think that all this stuff that's designed to really help new players isn't something that's just kind of a futile attempt at this point because it is so far past release.
Well, you have to look into PS4 as well. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this is hopefully going to help that other side of the community, you know, just as much as it'll help, or more now probably than it'll help PC players.
Well, and I'm also kind of hoping just for, you know, our own selfish long-term desire for this game. You know, for me, when I came in and played, you know, Battlefield 3, that was I was playing that on, you know, console, and then I was watching, you know, videos of like you and some of the other guys that we ran with back in the day. Thinking, God, you know, this is so much better on PC, and I built a PC as a result. I'm wondering if we see a little bit of that with the Planetside community as it's released on PS4, if it does drive some people towards wanting to play on PC, if there are things that are significantly better here.
Fortunately, it'll probably run better on the PS4. Nobody will ever want to come to PC.
God.
So, outside of that, two other notes here. New rewards. The squad and squad leader XP bonuses are provided by new ribbons tied to squad-related achievements. These rewards are flat, which favors large squads and platoons, reinforcing the work required to coordinate larger outfits. In my mind, anything to encourage squatting up, and then rewarding those that are really trying to keep everybody on task is a good thing in my mind.
I think that is actually a big high five to whoever came up with that, because right now running a squad leader requires a lot of certs to dump into it, and you never really get any bonuses from putting in that investment other than just kicking butt with your friends. So getting those extra ribbons and XP bonuses is sweet.
Well, and I think it kind of helps to offset a little bit. You know, when you're leading a squad and definitely a platoon, I mean, you spend a good portion of your time just staring at the damn map, trying to figure out where you're taking your squads to next and what the enemy's doing. If you can kind of get a little bit of experience in exchange for doing that by having your folks do the right things, I think that's at least, you know, maybe not an equal trade-off, but it's at least fair.
Definitely. Part of the reason I, you know, never usually lead squads or platoons is because I don't want to take the time to look at the map and figure out where everything's going. I just, you know, want to kill people and get rewarded like that, where, you know, you have, like, Flexo for our outfit is constantly in the map, constantly talking on leader chat, and missing out on a lot of the fun or certification points, and I think this would just help towards that.
Yep, agreed. I thought you were going to say you don't like doing it because you're an XP whore.
I'm not an XP whore. I constantly have like thousands of certs sitting around that I have nothing to do with. I just hate sitting around with my thumb up my ass, not killing people.
Yep.
Wait, that's not how you play the game?
And then the last one here.
On Saturdays.
Awesome. And the last one here, squad organization expansion. Addition of companies. A collection of four platoons and fire teams, 4 players per team, 3 per squad. Each of these will have appropriate channel voice channels, management user interface, and identifier options. I think that's cool. I like the idea of being able to expand into like massive and smaller organizational structures. My only concern is the current VoIP system in game is poo-poo. So the fact that they're talking about adding more to that without fixing the first one is concerning.
Yeah, since I think anybody that has enough to even field a company would probably just be using a separate VoIP program anyway.
Yeah, there's adding more voice channels. I mean, there's already, what, 4 voice channels in the game? And like Drathamus said, most big outfits are running something like Mumble or Skype or whatever. Just adding more voice channels is just, it's going to get confusing. It's already confusing half the time for me.
Yeah, well, and I think, you know, I think the adding a voice channel or just specifying a voice channel for a fire team, you know, like a group of 4 players, I think that's really useful, but I don't really see the purpose of having the company-wide one. You know, can you imagine 48 times 4, so what is that, 172 different people or something like that, all talking on one voice channel? No thanks.
Yeah, my ears would bleed.
Yeah. I like the idea of companies. I think giving the bigger platoons the opportunity to have maybe like a company leader instead of a platoon leader is probably a good thing just to stay organized. But my only real concern with it is the voice channel, and I think they just need to work that out in general, not just specific to this.
Well, if they had a company channel and limited that channel to squad leaders only, could work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So, those were the topics that I had picked out through the roadmaps. I thought they were all relevant and coming fairly soon. I think the latest one away is July, so we're talking about 3 to 4 months away. So that's really not too bad. So, I guess, do you guys have any other thoughts or issues or topics that you wanted to cover real quick?
Yeah. Don't expect these all to be released by July. First of all, some of these you're probably looking at 6 months to a year away, and you know that might not even be stretching it at all. And then also we did forget to mention that the mini chain gun is getting revamped as well. So you TR guys that have been complaining about the mini chain gun, and you know, I agree, I like using the mini chain gun, but it's nothing special. It is getting changed. Higby tweeted that out yesterday as well.
Hopefully it'll actually be a shoulder-slung chain gun.
That would be awesome. Drath, you got anything else you want to add?
Just other than the fact that I'm looking forward to the combat update coming in April, I believe.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff that's on the way, and you know, like Koolaid said, a lot of this is probably pretty far off. You know, I tried to use the word tentatively as much as possible in there. But, you know, a good example is March, we were supposed to have the 64-bit client, so unless something happens in the next 4 days or so, you know, chances are that's a good example of how things just get pushed back occasionally. So,
I think a lot of it they are going to want to try to get in before the release of Planetside 2 on PS4, but since there is no release date for that, I think they got plenty of time to work with.
Yep. Makes sense to me. All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure. Drathamus, thanks for joining us today. Much appreciated.
Thank you for inviting me aboard.
Sure thing. Koolaid, thanks as always.
Oh, yes. Thank you too, sir.
All right, guys. As always, make sure that you're going out, subscribing to their channel. I'll have a link to both of their channels in the description, so make sure that you're supporting them. Both good content creators that have a lot of good stuff for the community. You know, stay tuned to my channel for more episodes of Duality coming in the future, and have yourselves a wonderful day. We'll talk to you later.